My name is Eric Brown, and I'm a learning coach here at the school, second year in this position, but before that I was a seventh grade math and science teacher for 6 years here. And so we are excited. Come on in. It's okay. Come on in. We're just now getting started. So we're excited to kind of be launching a new phase in terms of grading and reporting. And to kind of give you a hint, we're going to try to eliminate the word grade. So we'll talk about that here in just a few minutes. So if you want to follow along, there's the bit.ly link. But you don't need to because everything's going to be up here. But the bit.ly link is right there, and it's bit.ly/DEMS learning, and it'll be case sensitive. So if you want to click on that and you can follow along, there's links within the presentation that you can go to for more information. So if you're interested in that, you certainly can. So again, we're trying to say the words measuring student learning progress, which for us sounds a little bit better than giving grades, and so we'll talk about that. So everything in terms of anytime that we report out student learning deals with a purpose. And so our purpose statement for a report card, and if you think back to maybe the report cards that you have received from your children or that you had as you were growing up, more or less what we want to do is communicate the progress of student learning. So about 7 years ago, we wrote this purpose statement, and it's kind of held true in terms of pretty much whatever we're doing. But in general, academic content and skills that we report out, as well as how your kids are behaving in the school. And then that progress report, anytime you receive, say, what a grade or whatever it is, then it's basically for students to identify on their learning success so that they can guide improvement. So it's important for us to start with a purpose. My clicker's broken, so I have to keep walking back. If you really want to dig into our long journey, 7-year journey to kind of where we are at this point in reporting out our students' learning, you can click in there and see it's a rather lengthy presentation. But basically, a leadership team went to Nepal in 2010, came back, listened to a couple of speakers, Tom Gusky, Ken O'Connor, and since then we've been trained by some others, and of course the flow of teachers in and out of the school has brought in different experiences. And so again, this idea for this year, we've tried to focus, and I challenged the teachers at the very beginning of the year to try to think of learning and not assigning grades or giving grades, but measuring the progress of learning. And so what I hope to do today is kind of guide you through what that's going to look like for students. And another hint, it's really not that different than what your learning journey has probably been in any time of your life. Come on in. We're just getting started. So our mission, a new mission statement, we feel that the way that we are reporting the progress of learning at DEMS aligns to the new ISG mission, which is we inspire innovation and compassionate action. And if we're giving grades and punishing students for grades, we're also not being very compassionate. So it does tie into that. Other aspects of the ISG guiding principles include the profile of graduates. This is brand new. It's only a few months old. This, by the way, was written by students at ISG. So the district, including 2 students from here at DEMS, they came together to write up what a profile of graduate would look like leaving an ISG school. And these are pretty good. We're not going to get into all of these, but it's important to note that what we're trying to do here with grading and reporting falls in line with what the district is also doing to push not only the profile of graduates, but also the learning principles. And if you look at those, I think it's pretty hard to disagree with any of them. When we were involved in the writing of this, one of the teachers said, well, these aren't really very innovative. And they're not, because good learning is good learning. And good teaching is good teaching. And so, but there are a few of those that tie into what we're talking about today with measuring the progress of our students, including our assessment beliefs. And there's one in there talking about reassessments and things like that. So again, all these last 3 slides were all written at the district level, filtering out the schools, and this is what we believe in terms of what our students should look like when they leave ISG, what our learning principles are, and then our assessment beliefs. Given multiple opportunities to demonstrate their learning. A lot in there about data also. So why are we doing this? Why do we not just grade ABC, maybe percentages, maybe average them, things like that, that we know that parents are very, very familiar with? Well, the world, we all know, is changing. So if we look at a Forbes study, Forbes magazine asked business leaders of the Fortune 500 what they most valued in, from a graduating student in college. And in 1970, these are the skills that they identified. Computational skills in 1970, oral communication, obviously, and then all the way down to teamwork. Now, 20 years later, in 1990, you can see the dramatic shift just from 1990. Excuse me, I'm sorry, it's 1999. Teamwork obviously has gone all the way to the top. Other things like problem solving and interpersonal skills, this is in 1999, what the business leaders were looking at. Shift ahead just a few years later, 15 years after that, in 2015, just 2 years ago, this is what they were looking for. Things like data analysis pop up there, prioritizing work. And so when we think about educating students and the skills that we're needing to give them, then this is what we need to gear toward. Now, what's hard to do is if these are the dramatical shifts, look where writing went. Not there. Listening skills. But some other skills have popped up, which I think that we can all agree that we want our students to have. So when we look at 2025 and another several years, some of you may have, we'll be getting close to kids getting out of high school or college by that time. Well, what's that going to look like if they did that survey again? So we've got to prepare our students for that, knowing what we know as far as the dramatical shifts and what employers are going to want and what the world is going to need. Now, how does that tie into grading? So standards-based learning, in general, what we've done is we've separated academic from behaviors. And in a very, very bare sense, that's what standards-based learning is. So when I was in school, I would receive, let's say, an A, and that A might have been composed of 50% test and 10% participation, and I might have brought in some sort of permission slip, and I would have received extra points for that, and none of that really tied into how I was doing in math. A lot of it was just participation. So what standards-based learning seeks to do is to separate the academic portion from really the behaviors. Still there, still important, we still report it. You're still going to see how your kid's doing in class, whether they're pulling little Sally's hair or whatever they're doing, but we're trying to really hone in on those skills that we were just looking at just a second ago. Now, some of you may be worrying, and I don't get as many questions about this, but how does this carry over into, let's say, high schools? How does this carry over into universities? And so if we take a report card that has no numbers on it at all, which is what basically ours is going to look like, then how is that going to be received, let's say, at Docron High School? How is that going to be received at, a little university called Harvard? Well, what we found is, and this is several years ago, this is almost an eight-year-old study, the Hanover Institute, and you can see the name of the actual title of it, and again, click in there if you really want to read it. It's just 2 pages long. But what they found is that these universities are quite okay with proficiency-based report cards, proficiency-based transcripts, and I think that we can all agree that those are pretty high-level institutions of learning. Those first 4 kind of key it off there. And basically, when you click into that, and you can go into every single one of those universities if you dig, and they basically say, in a sense, there is a lot of things that go into accepting a student. Harvard receives about 20,000 applications. About 2,000 of those students are valedictorians, which means they have the highest GPA at their schools, and only about 50% of those valedictorians get into Harvard. So Harvard, as well as all those other universities, are looking for other things in students other than just a grade and other than just a test score. Again, a link in there if you wanted to go back to that bit.ly. I'll go back to it at the very, very beginning if you want to write it down. There's a lot of reading there if you just wanted to dig in to all things standards-based learning. I didn't write any of those, but I have compiled the research on that. So what will the report card look like this year? It's not going to look that different in terms of if you were here last year. But basically, again, what I did is, because this was the same language as it was last year, except we took out the word grade. And so instead of saying a grade for academic content, it's going to show the academic content skills and skills standards. So it's going to show the measuring of that progress. And we'll look at the words here in just a few minutes. Again, you're going to see learning behaviors. Those are there. We count those just as equal. They're not weighted in any category. The academic is 100%. The skills and behaviors or learning behaviors are also 100%. And then we do provide teacher narratives or teacher comments that highlight successes, maybe some areas of improvement, maybe some encouragement. So the 3 areas that you'll see on actual report cards when they do come out. So switching gears here a little bit, I have a very good friend. This is my college roommate. He's in there in the very bottom corner down there. His name's Josh Holmes. And I emailed him and I asked him, what do you need to know to run a marathon? Because Josh runs a lot. He's like a Forrest Gump run a lot. And he runs ultra marathons where they're over about 150 miles. And he just runs. He runs for like 36 hours straight or something crazy. And so I call him up because he knows quite a bit about running a marathon. I was like, okay, what does it take to finish a marathon? Not that I'm going to run a marathon anytime in the near future, but I'm giving a presentation. And so he says, he gives me these. I researched some of them, and he gave me things, which was interesting. He's like, well, you need to know where the toilet is on the course. So little fine things. Now, you could know all of those things, but not run a marathon. But I think we can all agree that it's very important for us to actually know all of those things before we do that. And I was like, well, okay, fine. So what are some skills that you need to do? So if I'm going to start practicing to run a marathon, what are some skills? And he gave me these. And again, nothing mind-blowing here. But in general, the difference between the knowledge and skills. What our students need to know and what our students need to be able to do is very important to do the main event, which in this case is finishing a marathon. And if you're a marathon runner, that's the number one thing you want to do, is finish. That is the summative assessment, we could say. So if we look at the difference between a formatively assessed learning target and something that might be summatively assessed, the summative assessment would be that successful run of the marathon. Josh finished his 150 miles or whatever he was running, but he's tracked, but no one is really grading him. No one is evaluating him on the course for how well he knows those things and how well he can do those things. At the end of the day, either Josh can finish that marathon or he can't. So how does this tie into student learning? If we look at what our teachers are doing, is they are tracking, they're measuring students' progress of their learning. They're measuring those students' knowledge and skills before they ultimately run the marathon, before they stand on the stage and perform a concert, before they do some sort of summative math assessment that tests their application of that knowledge and skills. Because that's what we're trying to drive at, is the application of the knowledge and skills for our students. So our teachers formatively assess. What they do is use to guide the instruction. If Josh doesn't know where the toilet is on the course, then he's going to have issues in the marathon. If he doesn't have the correct posture, he's going to break down on the course. So he's got to know and be able to do all of those things. I missed my clicker. So summatively, we look, just like the kids there, I think that's maybe preschool. So summatively, we're trying to give your kids more authentic tasks. And that's the summative part. That's the marathon. What does it look like in a kindergarten class? Well, it may be their ability to write their letters right now. What does it look like in 8th grade math class? Well, I'm hoping that our 8th grade math teachers are giving kids challenging tasks to do that make them solve problems, that make them communicate why that's correct. In science, it's going to be going through an inquiry cycle to come up with why something happens in science, or maybe even engineering, solving problems. Either way, our summative assessments are looking at the skills and knowledge and bringing them together. So here's what I'd like for you to do. Think of a time when you learned a new skill, anytime. Anything in your life where it was a brand new skill. It may have been playing a violin. It might have been maybe running a marathon. It might have been learning a new language. It could be something in your school career that you didn't know before, or you weren't able to do before, but then after a certain time you were. So think about what this journey looked like. At what points did you struggle? At what points did you become proficient? And then at what point did you excel? And kind of, if you have that picture, and I was going to have you all write this, but I decided not to. And I was going to have tables and everybody, but then they said it was just 25 minutes, so I was like, we won't do that. But if you think about this, and I did this with the teachers. So the teachers sat down, and we all sat at their little tables, and I had them draw it out, and then we started applying what these words looked like. So before I show you the diagram of what it does look like, this is basically stages of learning. And there's one that's missing. The one that's missing is for people that are truly talented, the Tiger Woods of the world. Tiger Woods was born with a golf club in his hand. He went out there and he started beating people, and he started beating adults in the course at about the age of 9. But most of us go through a learning process. And if you look at stage 1, you don't have to worry too much about the words, but stage 1 basically says you don't even know what you don't know when you start learning something. So that learning process that you just thought about, at the very beginning, you didn't even know what you didn't know. But eventually you found out, wow, there's a lot to know about this, but guess what? I still can't do it. So maybe you need practice. Maybe you need to learn more. If we look at Josh and his marathon running, he probably had to, eventually he was able to know and be able to do all those things. Conscious competence is you can do it and you know it. That's good. That's more or less where we want to be. We want to be able to do those things. But there are people like Josh, and there are people like Tiger Woods, and there are people that are very, very talented and that maybe work harder, maybe they just have a natural ability. For whatever reason, they're able to go above and beyond in whatever that no one can do it, and they can take it above. You can do it without thinking about it. It's unconscious. Sometimes that's professional athletes or musicians or things like that. But at the end of the day, we're looking at know and can be able to do for our students. So this stages of learning, that line, and I asked my wife, she teaches IB psychology, and so she approved this chart as far as learning is concerned. And so if we think about the learning process through time and the learning that happens, you get up to a certain level where is proficiency. The first star, obviously, you're beginning. The second star, you're getting a little bit better through time. The third star, you're at that proficiency level. And then you do have some people that are way up above. What words, and you can just shout them out, what words would you use to describe the first star at the very bottom? Beginning, okay. Start to, introduction. Sorry? Intimidating. That's really good. Any others? Discovery, nice. Recognize, nice. Loser. Maybe if it's going back down, it's into the bottom. Confused, nice. What about the second star? Breakthrough, okay. Getting along or getting on, okay. Absorbing, nice. Striving. Motivating. Or maybe you're more motivated to get to where you're going. And then the third star. Proficient's up there, but what else? Self-confident, okay. Achievement. Relief, sorry. Comfort level, nice, yeah. Competent, yeah. Okay, and then the last star. The goal, okay. Maybe the ultimate goal. Pardon me? Rewarded, okay. Beyond, yeah. It's out there. I've got a neat little diagram of this where it's an airplane, and the kid's on the ground, and then the second one is he's taken off, and then the third one he's flying in the sky, and then the last one he's actually in the stars. So, I mean, what it takes to go from an airplane in the sky to one that's actually in outer space is quite a big difference. So you've described these stages of learning, and you've kind of gone through this. So what does it look like here at Doghound Elementary for our students? Guess what? It's the exact same thing. And so we found these little graphics, which I kind of like, and I want to kind of guide you through this one. You have at the very beginning, and those are the words that you're going to start seeing on students' rubrics. That's the word beginning that you're going to start seeing on the report cards also. But if you look at the first kid here, in one picture, he missed opportunities, and this kid didn't even show up. Maybe he was absent. Maybe he didn't try, but either way, he's not there. The second kid there, or that's still in the beginning stages, it's obvious that he's confused. He needs some help. He needs some support. But either way, he's very beginning. This kid still has the wheel off of his bike. And that's okay. Because the second set here is you have developing. This kid's riding his bike. But if you look closely, he's a little slow maybe. That one girl has training wheels. Very good. There was one more thing. Think safety. No helmet, no things like that. So this kid's got a little bit of work to do, but at least he's riding his bike. At least he's got the wheel on it. A proficient bike rider, you can kind of see, and I like this one because he's kind of leaning in. You can see how he's definitely going faster, and you can see how he can make the curves. He can do things like that, and he's certainly wearing his helmet. So he's good to go. He's ready to move on to some bigger, better things. Then you have this kid. It's a different bike. A teacher, I didn't see that one. A teacher pointed that one out. It's probably like a BMX bike. He's jumping ramps. Let's hope he has a helmet on. Probably different clothing that he would have to wear, doing the tricks, spinning, all that kind of stuff. We'll do, right after. Yeah, that's okay. Because I've only got a couple more minutes. So basically, that's the learning process. And the biggest shift this year for the students and for you all receiving it, last year it shouldn't be as different because we still had 4 levels of learning. And what I wanted to do today is kind of take you through those levels of learning and for you to kind of go through the same process that, again, you've done before, that our kids are doing, but our teachers are highlighting this year. And so you'll start seeing beginning, you'll start seeing developing, you'll start seeing proficient on the reports, and you'll start seeing some advanced on the reports. Last little bit here, because there is quite a bit more here, but we're out of time. The teacher comments are still going to be there. The homework guidelines are also in this slide, in this presentation, for both middle school and elementary. There's obviously no 0, because even the kid that didn't show up is still at the beginning stage. But we do have some different things that we do to help those kids. And then the idea of reassessing. We're going to get those kids to that proficient. We're going to give them support. We're going to let them redo things if necessary. We're going to get them to where they need to be because that's where they have to be. Because by 2025, we don't know what skills are going to be there, but whatever they are, that's where they need to be. And we're going to do everything that we can do to get them there. We'll have to stop right there. I think for the next 30 minutes is kind of like a Q&A type thing. And then by the bottom of the hour at 6:30, I'll just do the same presentation again if you missed the first part of it or if you just really liked hearing me talk. So, but thank you for coming. You may want to go, or you can stay around for questions. Thank you.